Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Get Printing. I'm your host, Zack Dewhurst, the Business Development Manager at Deco Network. I'm also the owner of Print Phase, a DTF and plastisol heat transfer supplier. I started my business back in 2009 and signed up for the game-changing software Deco Network the year after. In all my years of being in the decoration industry, I have never seen something take off so quickly as DTF, direct-to-film heat transfers. So maybe you're like me, and for years you were hoping for that digital printing process that can really make printing shirts even easier than before. Well, it's here. I mean, DTF hit the market a few years ago, and it really did something unique in that it decreased the barriers of entry into the printing industry even more. So all you need nowadays is a heat press, and you can decide if you want to buy a DTF transfer printer yourself or just outsource the transfer and press them. Today, we're thrilled to have Brandon Mills, founder of Total Promotion Transfers, a supplier of DTF, heat, and UV transfers located in Las Vegas, Nevada. Brandon started Total Promotion Company in December 2019. And if you think about that, it's kind of funny because he couldn't have started at really a worse time right before the pandemic. Brandon is here to share his valuable insights on how DTF changed the custom apparel industry overnight and how to rise above the competition. Now, before we get into today's episode, we need to talk about the really awesome sponsor, Deco Network, the all-in-one print shop automation software. Are you tired of juggling multiple tools to keep your print shop running smoothly? Deco Network is here to transform the way you do business. With Deco Network, you can effortlessly organize production, integrate with suppliers, manage your orders, and sell online all on one platform. No more headaches or multiple software subscriptions. Deco Network streamlines your workflow from order management to artwork approval, production workflows, and shipping. Plus, with its powerful e-commerce capabilities, you can design a beautiful website using the drag and drop what you see, what you get editor. Now, it's time to take your business to the next level. Visit DecoNetwork.com and request your free demo today. Deco Network, the print shop automation software to organize production and sell online. Now, let's get back to the show. How's it going, Brandon?
It's going good. How you doing, Zach?
Going well, Brandon. I mean, you are a character in this industry. I run into you at almost every trade show nowadays because you are all about education and growing your business. And Brandon, you're very much so DTF, aren't you?
I'm very much DTF, yes.
I mean, and you know, you've been doing it for several years now. I know you have a couple printers and you're always doing R&D. We talk about it all the time. I see you talking in the Facebook group. Shirt Lab is a great group. I highly suggest a lot of people join that I know you have. So without a doubt, the most popular topic right now, and has been for the past several years, is DTF. It is a revolutionary digital printing process for apparel that has changed the way shirts are printed. Every decoration process will have a time and place. None of the traditional are going away. HTV, it's not dead. It's changed. It's like assuming that building a car was going to eliminate the bicycle. No, absolutely not. Every decoration process is a time and place. It's just that DTF has eaten into almost every decoration method, including embroidery, and has impacted the industry more than anything I have ever seen in my 15 years. You're a little bit newer to the industry, but because you attend so many trade shows and I know you're doing RD, you come off as a guy who's been doing this for 20 plus years. Tell us a little bit about your company and how you got started in the industry.
Well, it might seem like I've been in it for a while just because I'm kind of a nerd. I in high school, I started a computer repair business with a friend of mine doing on-site computer repair, and we made fake IDs, using Adobe Photoshop back in the late 90s. So, that's kind of how I learned some graphics programs, and it kind of got out of it for a while. But yeah, coming back to Vegas, I was looking for opportunity to see what I can do to purchase ours instead of sell my own. And came across this business that I thought, I would be able to take into the 21st century. And it's really turned out that way. So, started off with screen printing, manual screen printers. And then from there, was looking to solve the issue of full color digital print on fabric. And at the time I was looking into DTG as an option, but I wasn't too happy with, having only pre-treated cotton. We had gotten a sublimation printer, and I wasn't too happy with only having white polyester. It was very limiting on what we could produce. And to be honest, especially here in Vegas, people don't want a heavy cotton shirt, and they don't, because it gets so hot here. And they also don't want a polyester because of the way it feels. It's just, it's okay in the sports industry, because it's very light, but just as an everyday type shirt, it's not something that people are wanting. So we really wanted to expand our capabilities. And I think it was in 2022 Impressions Expo. It was the first one that they had after lockdowns, and it was very poorly attended. But that was great for me because it meant a whole lot of one-on-one with people in the industry, and I came across a DTF printer that I was like, okay, let's get something small that'll fit in the shop that we currently had, and went through the process of purchasing this printer that never came, and months and months were going by, and I was checking on it, and then it was towards the end. I don't want to say who it was, but it was towards the end. They're like, "Oh, we're not going to sell you this printer now," and they issued me a refund. The reason was because they were having so many issues with that particular printer in the field, and it was such new technology at the time that it just wasn't making financial sense for the distributors selling those printers. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise because we ended up going with DTF Superstore, and at the time they're selling the Gen 1 Monmus. This is before they had all the Mamakis and stuff. And so we were like, okay, let's go ahead and get a 24-inch wide roll-to-roll printer, and we'll make it work. We ended up moving locations too. My lease was up on the old shop, and so right at the exact same time we moved locations, did alterations to the building to make it ready, built out the climate controlled environment, which was also a whole nother task in itself, especially being in a dry climate where we are. Being in Vegas, It's always very dry and hot. And then we had to develop a filtration system because the water was so mineral rich that it was causing calcium buildup on every surface in the room. And as you know, the print heads are, the nozzles are so small that, even the finest little piece of dust can cause an issue. And so we had to build out a whole different filtration system in order to remove those minerals. And then going through that process too, having anything with new technology, we changed damn near about every single part on that machine. Became incredible techs on it in the process. I would say it took us about a year before that machine really started, working without issues. And now that first machine we have is our workhorse. It's, if something is going to go wrong with it, we already know what it is, but it just runs now. And it's because we've gone through that process of fixing it over and over and over again, and now it's our baby.
Well, yeah, DTF, we like to call it like every year is like dog years. I mean, you're talking about a decoration process that's 4-ish years old, yet it feels like you've been doing it for a long time. I mean, it's crazy. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of DTF. So like you said, and I remember running into you at that show, and you're right, it was dead the first time after COVID because it was off 2021. So when DTF first came over here, it is all Chinese. and it was all Chinese made equipment for several years. It's not until like later 2023, it feels like, you started getting the Mamakis and you started seeing some other, manufactured outside of China. And there's a lot of guys who will slap their logo on the outside and it's like still kind of made in China. That's what most of these machines are. And the problem with buying something from China, because us in the industry, we're not used to it. We're not used to buying screen printing, embroidery, and all this stuff from China.
Right.
Did it come with a manual? Because even my machine, there's no manual. It's crazy that we spend tens of thousands of dollars. We have nothing. Oh, we have a question or problem? Call China. And it's like,
yeah, there's still on the dryer, there's still Chinese lettering, on the thing. So it definitely is very much a Chinese product. However, I'm a big advocate of Generation 2 DTF printers. And the reason being is you're able to increase your margins significantly having a bulk ink system, that's not that you're gonna be able to expand how far your consumables go. With the newer Gen 3 and soon to be Gen 4 printers, you've got the Mamaki, which I consider to be a Gen 3 printer.
Yep, I agree.
Gen 4 printers, I think, are going to end up becoming like Brother and, Epson and some of the bigger players. They're great because they're going to have the reliability, but you sacrifice speed. You sacrifice, you have to buy consumables directly from them in cartridges. And that's also because they want to be able to control the variables within the printer so that they run for the common user. However, for the users that are operating Gen 2, you control the variables yourself. So if you're able to control all the variables, external and internal, you're going to be able to make so much more margin, and you're going to have a better product too. The prints that we're putting out, it's some of the best in the country.
Yeah, it's funny because you brought up like computer repair. I'm a Mac guy. I'm not tech savvy, and my DTF printer goes down, I'm a little screwed. I have some friends in the industry that I met through Deco Network. Jay Wilson installed mine. Highly suggest working with Jay at DTF Experts. But you are totally right. I feel like while it was a little bit of the Wild West and, hey, you're a little on your own and you're treading water a little bit as far as how this works, the quality you control. Because there is nothing wrong with those Generation 3s. They are a little bit more expensive. There's a lot of peace of mind there. You are going to pay a little bit more. But I've also seen, we're talking about printing. Color is very important. And I know it's something that you take extremely seriously. And some of the Gen 3 printers, I have really scratched my head. It was like, why aren't you able to hit some of these colors? And sometimes it's just what you brought up. There's just a lot of variables. So let's first start with the printer variables, and then we're going to actually back and talk about like setting up the room, because it is a totally different ballgame. So we have three main consumables. Well, actually, let's throw in a fourth or a fifth. Brandon, print heads are consumables. Let's make that very clear. And they are the most expensive consumable you will ever have. An i3200, I wish I had stock in the i3200 print head, because Epson, it's hilarious. For years, I got in a debate with somebody a couple of years ago, and it's like, these are all Epson 3200 print heads. And somebody's like, Epson doesn't make DTF. They don't make a DTF printer, but guess what? That's what everybody is using. It's an Epson print head for the most part. No, it's a low viscosity. It's a low viscosity print head that allows the low viscosity inks to flow through. It doesn't really matter. I guess they got Epson has the IX600. I can't even remember what it is now. We've got that on our UV DTF printer. Yeah, I think my first printer was that the 600 as well. I had an 813.
Right.
A little cheaper, but and again, these print heads. The way I like to look at DTF, this is how I used to explain it. We took an eco-solvent printer, roll-to-roll eco-solvent printer. They took out the inks, they put it, or the print heads, they put essentially a DTG print head to a degree in there. And then it comes out of the DTG, the wide format printer. It goes into a conveyor dryer that we typically use with screen print, but it shakes, it applies powder and shakes it off before it comes out the end. And then, boom, we have a product. In a nutshell, that's what it is. But so you've got the print head as a consumable. It only has so many prints in it. So you want to make sure that printer is working properly.
Did I tell you how many print heads we went through in the first year?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, tell me.
It was 13.
13
print heads in the
$1,200 print heads?
Oh, they were $1,500 print heads at the time. They're cheaper now. They're only $1,000 a print head now.
Oh, only $1,000. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, even if it's $1,000, I have no interest in being the one to take it apart and put it in there. I'm not a tech.
We weren't making money. We were working for parts. That's what it was in that first year. But through that process, I mean, we discovered, we tried every possible thing to keep these print heads alive, and the weak link ended up being the ink that we were putting through it. Ink that works for other people just fine, through a reputable distributor, but as soon as we switched the inks out, we stopped having issues. And then so we've done 3 different ink changes. Our last ink change now is our DuPont inks, which I'm pretty happy about.
It's an American-made ink. I mean, if I can buy American-made consumables, I will, because they care more about the quality control and everything.
And not only that, DuPont has engineers. They're chemical engineers that are developing the best possible product. It's the one thing that we're paying more than what we can get inks for other places, but just in terms of saving print heads, yeah, it's not bad at all.
If you compare it to DTG, what I used to pay back 15 years ago, DTF, well, why is DTF loved? Well, we can print on anything. We don't even have to be the one to print it. I can hit you up, Brandon. You can send me the transfer. I know you have tons of clients like that, so I don't even have to own the dang thing. A transfer allows me to press wherever I want, whenever I want. I'm not sitting on inventory. I can print on demand. But the quality is amazing. But the price, we're talking about way less. It's amazing how many screen print shops. I'm talking about die-hard screen printers for 30 years with 4 or 5 autos are like, nope, we're done. And I'm not saying screen printing is dead. No way I really don't want to heat press 500 shirts.
No.
That is actually, it's coming. It is coming, because you know what you see nowadays, and I know we're getting a little all over the place. I expected this with me and you, Brandon, but you go to a trade show. We're going to visit you at Printing United in Vegas. It's the one time it's in your backyard. They didn't have to travel.
That's great, yeah.
But hey, yeah. I highly suggest doing Brandon. Brandon, you go to a lot of trade shows. Again, you have, in your 5 years in the industry, you have so much knowledge because of that. But when it comes to, the cost, everything, the ability to apply it. But what I'm seeing at trade shows, there's like no manual screen presses. I don't think anybody's really going to make them anymore.
No.
You know what you see? And you know what? You see far less automatics. Again, I walk throughout a trade show, and I always, I now tally how many booths have different types of equipment. So I know out of 100 booths, 5 of them have DTG. So 5% of the room is DTG. DTF, there's more DTF than every decoration process combined. What I'm getting at on this long tangent is pre-DTG or pre-DTF, you would see 95% of heat presses that are being sold are a single platen press. Now you go to a trade show, you see way more duals. Now you're seeing quad and 6 station heat presses. So when I'll go back to, because there's a Deco Network user I recently talked to, and they had multiple autos, and they still have multiple screen press autos, but they have a carousel heat press that they can heat press 500 shirts in an hour. And that's incredible. Where you're going. And you're talking about labor, the skilled labor that goes into screen printing embroidery versus applying a transfer. Oh my gosh. It's nothing. It takes nothing to learn how to do that compared to the others. So,
well, actually in my shop, I'm not allowed to heat press any transfer.
I can't do it
anymore. Every time I do it, I get it crooked.
Once you get away from it, you can't do it. But if you do it a few times a week, you're pretty confident at it. But so why is everyone DTF? And again, we're going to get back to these consumables, but it's cheaper than most old school did. It can go on anything. I can put it anywhere. The quality, the biggest drawback for initially is what we talked about in industry was the hand, the feel of the print.
Sure.
But guess what? A glob of ink is a glob of ink. That's just a fact. I don't care if it's water-based. I've seen it done really well. But a glob of ink's a glob of ink. And I first met those DuPont guys at the Printing United Apparel Summit. So it was like a private event. And the DuPont engineers that they sent, so for their reps, they're complete characters. I bet you've ran into them. They're a lot of fun. But DuPont,
I've met a few.
They're the oldest chemical manufacturer, I want to believe, in the United States. They're one of the biggest in the world. So when DuPont is making that product, that would give me a lot of confidence. I'm not ready to just take the ink out of mine because we're going to talk about all these variables to dial in. And when you start playing with them, you found that your first ink wasn't working for you. So our consumables, print heads, get ready. They do have a lifespan. And when I say lifespan, it's like a car. If it has so many miles, but age over time, ink just sitting in the head isn't going to, even if you're not printing it all the time, although these printers want to print, don't let it sit. That's the worst thing you can do.
We're getting a whole lot more life out of our print heads now. It's very, very rare. Yeah, it's better ink. And usually it's attributed to, something that happened somewhere else in the printer, that causes like a print head strike or something that we just can't recover from. And it happens. There's so many different things that are in these printers. If that film starts to buckle underneath, and if your dryer isn't catching up. Like right now, we've got a dryer down. We've got a part on the way. So one of our printers are down because the sensor for when the film drops low enough in the shaker, the sensor's no longer working. So the uptake is just pulling it all the way through, and it's coming all the way up, and so it's not automatically turning off anymore.
Operator just has to stay that now. And you bring up a great point. So when we're DTFing, we're talking about really two pieces of equipment. And I know we'll talk about it maybe a little bit, but the CobraFlex Stealth is like the first one I've seen all in one. That's pretty cool what it can do. But these, the ink, you get what you pay for. This process is so low, buy the best possible. Now, the problem with most of these consumables has been, until around a year ago, is it's all coming from China. And China thinks that we want things cheaper. We want it cheaper, and we tell them, no, we want it better. Yeah, I think you want it cheaper. No, we want it better. We want it more consistent. Ink can be inconsistent from batch to batch at times. I feel much more confident buying somebody from like DuPont personally. Film. Film is what we're printing on. It's called direct-to-film printing. Well, that film is coated. And I don't know about you, Brandon, but I've gotten rolls of film and we're poorly coated. And either ink is sticking, or the ink or powder is sticking where it shouldn't, or it doesn't want to transfer, or it does transfer, but then it comes off. It doesn't have the durability. I do think it's gotten better. I do. But it's still not. I would love if DuPont came out with their own film. I want something American made, because these consumables in your couple years, they're dropping tremendously.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
And the quality is going up quickly. The quality of the film is improving. Over the last 2 years, from what we were getting before to what we have now, we have true hot peel
everybody's like, this is hot peel film. No, it's not. Do you know what hot means? That means instantly hot. And I finally found a true hot peel, but I also ran into this, and I still haven't found the success, and we're going to talk about color. You're printing onto a film, and if you want to look at the colors on the film, that's great. But guess what? That's not what the customer's getting. They're getting it.
No, you got to press it on.
On there. So, and when some of these carriers, these films with their coatings, the color changes from what it looked like on there. I often will see it blow a little lighter with some of the instant hot peels. And it's funny because you're a part of the Shirt Lab group. There are die-hard, I'm going instant hot peel because it's so fast. And then there's others where I really want it to be cold peel. And you know what? I only see that instant hot. And again, maybe you aren't experiencing like me because your R&D's way, way beyond. And I know you're buying direct. But when it comes to printing, we print spot color. So like what I'm doing, it's a 2-color print. Those days, that used to be all that customers wanted. But then once we showed them DTG and so forth, they're like, no. I don't want to be limited to a couple colors. Yeah. I want as much in there. And now I know you're also big into AI. And think about like using Midjourney and all those colors and so forth. Well, guess what? When your eyes aren't looking at 2 specific colors, your customer will never see the difference. If there's more than 3 colors in the design, it's very difficult. The cliche, this is always the example, everyone, Coca-Cola red. Because if you're going to print for Coke, that red has to be exactly what they want. And you see it because it's always a 1-color print. I don't remember the last time I saw the Coke logo with more than maybe a white backing or something. You know what I mean? It's always... So I think your eye...
They were very smart when they did their branding to be able to use, 1 and 2 color processes, to be able to do things across the board. But nowadays the demand is for full color options. So we've printed out the entire Pantone chart of all Pantones that fit within the CMYK spectrum. It went on to 17 different shirts, 17 different black shirts, from edge to edge, top to bottom, in just little squares going across with the Pantone number and what it is. And creating the custom profiles for that particular printer is key. It's not cheap though. To buy this piece of equipment, we got the X-Rite Publisher Pro 3, like the I1 or something. And that was like $3,500 for the package that we got. And then you've got to learn how to use it. And every single time you print, you got to press on to a shirt because that's what, you can't put the spectrophotometer onto the film because you're going to get a false reading. So being able to use a specialized equipment that can then change how that color is going to come out of your printer especially for those customers that need the color accuracy. And it's funny because we've got a big client that we're printing for right now, and the old prints were, they were what they were, but it's what the customer got used to. And now our colors are so much better. We're having to explain to them that, the colors are going to change a little bit. They're going to be more accurate, so that way they understand that, our accuracy is actually improved. And it's not that the color is changing, for the worse. And to be able to go through and try to change digitally what they were getting before is going to be such a headache. We're just like, hey, listen, guys, our processes are just improving. You're actually getting a more accurate color from what you're wanting.
Well, and you're bringing up a great point. You do not want to be changing the variables when you're sending the artwork to the printer. I never touch the contrast, the saturation. Don't touch any of that, because if you get a reorder, how are you going to remember? That's the way we did it. And it's just too hard, which makes this such a challenging thing, because when you first buy your DTF printer, you want to get it dialed in from the start. That way, when you start providing transfers, you're printing onto shirts, your clients are going to get the same thing a couple years from now. What's crazy about these printers, and it's funny because I talk a lot of guys about this, it's mind-blowing that the exact same printer that you have in Vegas, and if your exact same consumables, your exact same color profile, if I put it here in Columbus, Ohio, it's not going to look the same. It's no. Crazy. Things like altitude and just, it just blows your mind that these little, just the location. Or I was talking to somebody this week doing a podcast. He has two of the same printers, same consumables, same color profiles, different color print. It's frustrating. Yeah. Blows your mind.
Our big challenge, at least initially, was when we got our second printer, was matching the colors so they both are exact coming out of both printers. And that was a major challenge because, the colors would be just a little bit different on one printer than they are the other. And so in the beginning, we were having to, okay, this job has to
track. Yeah, you have to keep track.
Yeah, this job has to, this customer needs their prints on this printer. And it wasn't until we went through and did the custom profiles for both and dialed them in that we were able to match the colors between the two. And that was no simple task. And there's always a little bit of tweaking going on too. It's, variables change. It's interesting because, we had some big rains here the other day. I guess it was about a week or two ago, and humidity levels went way up. And so we had to cut off the humidity in the rooms and open the doors to the room to let humidity out. So temperature, humidity, all these things and there's such a minute variance, but it's such a drastic change in the results of the print. And so it really is something that to take into account and try to keep the conditions as consistent as possible in order to keep your prints consistent.
Let's talk about that, because you did essentially what I think everybody has to do, unless you're buying like the Cobra Flex Stealth. I recently made a video with them. I hadn't really seen it much, but then after seeing that, it's a very expensive printer, but yeah, it has a built-in humidifier, dehumidifier, AC. It's crazy. So you could use that thing outside, I feel, and be good. And if you need that, great. It is definitely more expensive. But when it comes to this, you need to build a space. You need to have a dedicated room. I know you built, because when we're talking about variables, you're talking about primarily temperature and humidity, dust, like little things. This is not a printer that you buy and put in the corner of the warehouse next to the embroidery machine and the screen print on the other side. Like, it needs humidity. I dealt with it in DTG. You talked about replacing 13 heads. I think I replaced like 8 over the years. Now, in my defense, I was like 20 years old when I bought the thing, and I just didn't listen. Not that that's a good reason at all. Yeah. But I learned through DTG, humidity, respect it. Respect chemistry. Because if you don't, you're going to, Walter White, respect the chemistry. Yet you cannot, it has to be done. And you're going to get different color prints and other things if any of these variables are different. You have to build that space, keep it very consistent, and then even so, you're still going to run into challenges because, hey, you keep buying that ink, and then all of a sudden, guess what? They changed their formula. They changed something small, but they didn't tell you, or the ink got old. So when it comes to ink, let's talk a little bit, because you know a little bit about DuPont and so forth. What is glycol? Why is that in some inks and important, or why don't we want it?
Yeah, well, the glycol is going to be that residue that comes out of the inks. I mean, like that's another thing that has to do with your second piece of the equipment in the process is your drying and your curing, and so in pumping that out of the room, like so initially we had a room that was close to a wall, and we were able to pump it out into the air. Now we've got a commercial, I guess, what do they call it? The
fume extractor.
Fume extractor. Yeah. So the fume extractor. So we've got a big fume extractor, and we're able to run both printers into that. But yeah, the glycol is just part of that byproduct that comes out of the
and again, this is something, guys, that you really need to be venting. You've got to get that exhaust out, because we really don't know how dangerous this is. The fumes, the powder itself, if that's getting in the air.
Yeah.
So how much is like a fume extractor that you bought, a commercial one?
Well, there's one that came with my second printer from CobraFlex, and it's quite a bit smaller, and that would fill it pretty quick. So we went ahead and got like this giant. It looks like a huge cabinet, and it was several grand. It was several grand, but it's one of those things that it's a necessity. You're going to have to.
I highly suggest everybody out there, when you're looking at getting a printer set up in Shaker, and I do know a lot of dryers now come with them, but if it doesn't, you need to kind of account for that as being one of your costs, because you can vent on the wall, but I've also seen venting. Depending on the time of the year, I may vent better than others because it's thrown it out into the air. So, you need to be buying.
We have our operators wear respirators as well, and more specifically, they wear respirators when doing anything with the powders, the adhesive powders. There's been some things we don't really know quite yet what the long-term repercussions are of inhaling these powders. There's data missing on the NDS sheets for the powders coming out of China. I can't remember the guy's name. He was early adopter of DTF printing, and he'd come down with cancer. It could be just a coincidence, or it could be directly related to the inhalation of powders. So as a precaution, we just make sure that we've got respirators on when we're dealing with those.
Definitely,
especially when we're filling. Yeah, if we're filling the adhesive powder, because we also don't know. We don't know if how fine of like particulates that is in the air, and so just as a precaution until more data comes out, we want to make sure that we're keeping our guys safe, and that should be top priority for anybody that's working with these pieces of equipment. Is if you're not sure, just take that extra step of precaution, because last thing you want is to come down with some major health thing for printing people's t-shirts. T-shirts aren't supposed to be a life and death thing. So
no, and I know you're a former rough-decker working on oil rigs.
Yeah.
One of the most dangerous careers. For t-shirts, it's more dangerous. That's not what you brought up.
Right.
So, again, DTF. One of the really cool things about DTF is you don't have to own your own printer. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things.
Yeah.
You can, before you bought your printer, you were outsourcing, because you're going to get that transfer. So transfers. Now, you, in addition to printing your own shirts, you supply transfers to other print shops who haven't taken the dive. And the reason why they haven't taken the dive, they'll hear your horror story, how much it took you and so forth. And it's pretty common. Are some of your clients that you've worked with, did they ever tell you, I'm not interested? Or have you lost any clients because they did finally buy their own equipment?
We've had both. We supply to probably half or more of the print shops, in Southern Nevada. And then we've also got a few, regional clients, and then we've got a few national clients too that just love our print so much that they're willing to take the extra time and pay the shipping to have it sent to them. Because we've gone through the process, and they see us tinkering all the time. They see that we're constantly trying to better our products. There's some of our clients, they're just so glad that we're here because they don't have to deal with it. And they can get our prints from us, very inexpensively, and they can make fantastic margins on them without having to deal with the headaches. But then we've also had, there's one print shop in particular, they saw what printer we had and they got the same printer we got. And then they were on the phone all the time with us trying to see if we'd help them out. And I got no problem with it. In fact, we ended up selling them consumables because we have, direct supply chain, for what we're using. So, these people keep trying to be my competitor, and I keep making them my clients. It's great because, especially in this industry, it's so easy to work with people, and there's so much work. There's so many different niche markets that really it doesn't matter whether somebody gets a printer and starts going off on their own, because rarely are they stepping into your lane with the types of clients that you're serving. So,
have you? I mean, I know I have. You're talking about a stupid saturated market. I mean, my business revolved around for years printing screen print transfers. We still do, but I mean, if it's a 50-piece order and it's one color, I could screen print it for the same price. I'll get it to you a DTF, and you're going to be able to see through. I mean, it's just too easy. Because time's money, and it's just easier. So. But when it comes to DTF, I mean, everybody is selling the transfers. How do you separate yourself from the pack? Is it because of your color accuracy, the instant hot peel? Like what? How?
I mean, all of that kind of plays into it. I mean, in the ease of ordering too. We use DecoNetwork to create a separate site for ordering transfers. And I built custom products that, based on the area size, and people can just upload their stuff. And so then it automatically comes into our production queue. So the ease of use, they trust our product. I hear from people all the time that, that have tried DTF, and they're like, oh, I ordered it one time and it was great. And then I ordered it again and it didn't work and it was all messed up. And then they say how expensive it was as well, and I show them what we're doing, and they're just kind of blown away by it. So I don't know, it's funny because, like, if you go into the DTF groups on Facebook, and somebody says, hey, I'm looking for somebody that can print some transfers for me, in a matter of minutes, there's 100 comments of everybody trying to get that. I don't even bother with it. I just I don't even want to be part of that noise. There's other niche markets here, and people are looking for different kinds of things. A lot of people don't know what exactly DTF is yet. It's funny, like 2 years ago when we first went down this route, I made it a bad word to say the word transfer in our shop, especially to the clients, because they had such a negative connotation of what a transfer was. Yep. And so we call them in our shop, we call it digital print. So, we don't have to explain that, how the sausage is made. If they want to know, we'll show them, we'll tell them how it is, and we'll tell them how it's different from white toner. We'll tell them how it's different from some of the other, transfers that, from the past. But I would say with our shop, word of mouth is really huge. People all the time people refer to us all the time based on our quality.
ZZ Top guy. You need to work with the ZZ Top guy.
Yeah, that's right.
And hey, it's just like selling apparel. Quality, service, price is the third most important. It's amazing how expensive some of these bigger guys are. And I'm like, really? I know what you have in costs. You were ripping these people off. But
yeah,
they it is what it is. But the hand, have you seen that be an issue to many customers, or have you found some ways to decrease the hand by using certain types of powders or knocking out colors, things like that?
Yeah. In fact, initially, when the product was very new, there wasn't a whole lot known about, artwork, like the artwork side of what to do, like knocking out black in a design if it's going on a black shirt, so that, the black of the shirt is the black in the design, softens it up, makes it more breathable. There'll be people that'll send stuff to us, and it's a giant chunk of solid ink. And they'll come back and be like, hey, why, I don't like how this feels. I'm like, well, here's some things you could do. And that, whether it be half toning with lines or dots or whatever it might be, there's a whole lot of different things. But then on top of it, the consumables, with the powders, we use a mix of fine and medium.
There you go. Right there. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for years when it comes to plastic transfers, guys. You have coarse, really thick powder. You have a medium. You have a fine. I'm telling you, so the fine will give you the softest hand, but it may not be as durable. It may not be as opaque. That medium is going to give you a little more durability, a little bit more opacity, but it's going to feel a little thicker. Well, let's do this.
Right.
Let's cut them like we're making something. And you'll get the both of best worlds, man. I mean, really, it is a formula for success. I completely agree with you, Brandon, on that.
And then another thing too is the films and the glycol. That depending on what inks you're using and what films you have, are going to leave an oily residue on the front as well. So if you're using better quality film and better quality ink, you're going to eliminate that oil residue on the shirt that gives it kind of that sheen. A lot of times, if you do have that, it comes off in a wash, and it's not too big of a deal. Another thing too is if people there's two more things. One is the thickness of the fabric that it's going on. Like if you're putting a DTF print on, say, a thick hoodie.
Nobody cares.
Yeah. No, you can't. The hand feel is really nice because there's so much material behind it that's backing that up. Whereas if you're putting it on polyester, you're going to feel it a whole lot more. And it's going to feel a lot more plasticky on a thinner material. But then a lot of times too is, after you've washed it a couple times, it softens up as well. So we've had clients that say, oh, I don't like the way this feels. And I'm like, just wash it. And then they wash it and they're like, oh yeah, it feels a lot better now.
After that first wash, it's amazing. It's kind of like with DTG. With DTG, you had to pre-treat a shirt, which is why DTG is not as much. The actual printing of DTG, nobody hated that. It's the freaking pre-treat and the fact that I can't go on everything that I can with like I can DTF. But you would often have that polymer box. So what I always did when I was DTGing is we slipped in something that said wash before wearing. And it's with DTF, it's kind of the same way in that, hey, this is going to soften up a little bit and not be, as stiff. But again, it just depends on the design. Like with this felt beautiful from day one because it's not a glob of ink. And again, I don't care if you're screen printing it or your DTG. It's a glob of ink is a glob of ink.
Another question that a lot of people have is durability, and they're concerned with it because it's a new technology, and we've been doing it for a couple of years now. But some of our clients, we've got police academies, we've got fire departments, we've got all these customers that have been using it for years now, and it's holding up better than what their other shirts have. Green printing over time will start to crack. I do have one shirt that I wear regularly. One of the first shirts that I made, it's starting to crack a little bit, but that's only if you stretch it really, really far on the print. But you let it go, and the colors look just as vibrant as they were, And this has gone way past 50 washes.
This is way past. 50
I'm trying to. Yeah, and they just last. They just last so well. It's quite incredible.
It feels like we're cheating because this process again, and I'm not trying to say, oh, it's so easy, guys. It's not exactly easy.
Oh, it's a pain in the butt.
Started. And it's getting easier because
it's not easy to keep it going either.
No, but I would have gone a different route than you did, and I would have had an industry expert who does these, installs them for a living, because you would have saved yourself some print heads, but your colors wouldn't have been as accurate as you've gotten them now, for sure.
Right.
Because it's definitely something where I'll spend a couple grand getting it dialed in from day one, because this is some crazy stuff. I know even the Mamakis, which again, like you said, they can control the curves and all.
I've heard good and bad things about them.
Well,
The Mamaki, I've heard that. Well, the Mamaki, I think it's one of those Gen 3 printers where a lot of the variables are controlled within the printer itself, which is great because it's going to cut down on a lot of the maintenance. Even though you can't ignore it entirely, it doesn't get rid of it all, and you're still going to have issues with it. And I'll talk to people that have Mamakis that say, hey, it's not as hands off as they claim. But it is getting better. Just like any technology, over time it gets better, and the price comes down, and it becomes more accessible to more people.
Yeah, and I know. I just said, hire somebody to install it, but that person has to be good too, because, I go to all these trade shows, and what I'm starting to see now, Brandon, is so many of them. This is the CMYK. Look at how many colors we're able to hit. Now look, we introduced all these other colors. And I'm looking at it, and it makes sense. So let's back up a little bit, guys. So this is a full color printing process. Well, guess what? Screen printing has been able to do process printing for decades. So what did screen printing do? CMYK, DTG, CMYK. But then a lot of these other printers, they introduced light cyan, light magenta. Now we're able, instead of 1,200 Pantone colors, now I can hit 1,800, for example. Then now I'm starting to see red, green, blue, orange getting introduced. Again, really cool, because now we're able to hit more colors. But guess what, Brandon? If you don't have the right color profile in there, or you're using a certain type of film, it's not getting you a better print. I'm telling you, I think my CMYK, I've never heard anybody complain. Now, are there some colors that might be harder to hit? Yeah, or I need a fluorescent printer and so forth. I know what you're going to start seeing. You're going to start seeing CMYK mixed with that RGB orange, and then literally other Pantone. I know that there's like a 16-head printer that's getting dialed in right now, and it's going to hit, a crazy amount of colors. But right now, I have yet to see it actually be better. Because if that color profile isn't right, it just doesn't work, Brandon, because the RIP software doesn't even know, what, we should use this color for. It's just, everything's got to be in conjunction. And, when you're doing color profiles, because I just recently talked with Mamaki, and I'm not going to put down Mamaki's equipment at all, but they have different color profiles for different types of film. So, again, you've got to and realize that where you're located, you may use a different color profile. And some of those technicians just aren't exactly always acknowledging it, I think. They just kind of want to get it set up, get out of there, call it, hey, look, it's printing. I mean, yeah, but then, every screen printer has a Pantone book. Every DTF printer should have a Pantone book. We when I had my first DTG, I didn't really have a Pantone book. I didn't see it that necessary. But now with this, especially, but the misconception, in my opinion, hey, it's going to get there. I haven't seen it work yet. I really haven't.
I think a lot of that it's going to be, the RIP that you're using as well.
It's the RIP.
So like if you're taking an RGB file, and converting it over to, because right now you're converting into CMYK, and you're going to lose, there's going to be a lot of colors that are out of range. It's just that if your RIP is set up, you're going to be able, and you have those additional colors, it's going to be able to hit those colors. Thing is, though, the majority of prints are going to be in that CMYK range, and so it's only going to be a very small handful of clients that are going to require having that. And for us, it hasn't made sense for us to move into doing anything beyond CMYK. Maybe there's certain niche markets, and if you're in the psychedelic rave space or something, and you need to, hit neon colors, then maybe. But it really depends on what the needs of your customer are. And so, like, we've got a 4-head printer from CobraFlex. And it has the ability to do those extended colors, but we're running CMYK through all of it just to, because now we get a faster print. Whereas if we were to have, you know, these colors, it would slow it down to the same speed as our 2-head printer.
Yep. No, and for those out there, again, most of these printers, you do have single heads. You have 2 heads, you have 4 heads. I'm now hearing about like a 16 head. Crazy to me.
Yeah. Oh, Cobra Flex has got I think it's the Venom.
The Venom.
Like
the Venom
heads,
is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And
that's insane.
The thing I like, the more heads, typically the faster you're going to be able to print. That's a big thing. The other thing is, you mentioned a head strike. Well, I bet out of your 4 heads, 2 of them are white, 2 of them are CMYK. You could lose one of them and still print. Okay? So...
Yeah, but you're going to slow it down.
You're going to slow it down.
We're doing it right. Yeah. So there's a certain percentage of ink that comes out of each one. In order to make that as fast as you can, you're going to have, you know, you're going to back it back to about 50% in each head. But between the two, you're getting 100% coverage, and, you know, without any banding. Whereas, you know, if you do lose a head, you're going to notice a little bit of banding, so you're going to have to make adjustments in order to cover that. So I know that Mamaki has some kind of technology in their print heads. They have a different kind of print head, whereas if a nozzle goes out, there's another, you know, others pick it up for it, so to prevent banding. I haven't seen it in person. I've heard about it. I think it's pretty cool. You know, over time, like I said, that technology will become more accessible and it'll be more mainstream. But in the meantime, it's what we're doing, I think, is where we need to be.
Yeah, and my personal preference, so one, I really recommend 24-inch wide or wider printers. Primarily, those A3s, they work. They're slower. The reason why I'm like hesitant is because somebody like you or me are going to print a transfer so cheap that it's not really, in my opinion, worth always doing it that way. I'd rather just outsource, because I outsource DTF. I mean, I was hesitant for a couple of years, and I have guys who will print at cost for me. So I'm like, I don't really want to take this dive yet. And
you also got to think too, is like, if you're getting a 13-inch wide, yeah, I mean, you've got to have a little section for the wetting bar. You're not actually getting 13 edge to edge on the printer.
No.
And you know, like on our 24-inch, we're printing our printable area is 22 inches, and that's to make sure we have enough margin on either side so that we don't have any issue, and then so that we also have the wetting bar, which is going to keep, you know, every single time the print head comes across, it sprays a little bit of ink out of it just to keep it from drying up. So if you have let's say you have an image that has, you know, it's heavy magenta, you know, and no cyan, the cyan's going to dry up while it's printing because it's not in the
I've never looked at it that way. I literally always looked at it as, let's make sure that we don't drop a color. You're making a great point. You don't want that thing sitting, so it's always printing every one of those colors. That's cool. Learn something every day. Back to my point, though, Brandon, I would, if my tip, get a 24-inch. If you can't afford it, outsource until you can, because we've already talked about all these variables, and once you start doing that and then you grow out of it, well, guess what? You're starting from scratch again. The other tip I have, and I'm not putting these down at all, but I would much rather have 2 24s than a 48. I want the redundancy. I'm a little jealous of you, Brandon. You've got 2 printers. One of them goes down, you're not dead. You get a 48.
I mean, that's what we got right now. Yeah, we got one printer running right now, taking care of all of our jobs while we got a part that's supposed to be here on Monday, and then we'll get them back going again. So, but we're not completely down. It's when we had one printer, it was horrifying. You know, a printer went down and we would be on the phone immediately with, you know, to get the part overnighted to us so we could get it in there as fast as possible, which has also led me to hold an inventory of parts. So we've got certain parts that we hold. And so a print head, we always have a new print head ready to be put in. And if we end up using it, I order another print head as the backup, and it sits and waits until we need it again. Same with the dampers, same with like the the capping station pumps, there's just a lot of parts that over time, especially if it's something that, goes out on your printer, you're like, okay, if this happens, we're going to need to have this backup. I mean, but there's always something new that's going to happen to it. It's just keeping them going. It's just one of those things. It's like a truck driver maintaining his truck so that, he can haul more loads. You want to make sure you can maintain your printer. You want to make sure that you have, the parts and the tools on hand so that you can keep it going, because that's your revenue stream right there. It's that goes down, you're going to lose the faith of your clients. I mean, that's another thing too, is we have such fast turnaround times and there's such consistent prints that people have come to rely on us. So if we had both printers go down, we would have to have a serious conversation with a lot of people that are waiting on our orders, who have clients that are waiting on their orders.
Yeah.
We've built this trust, and we have to maintain that trust. And in doing that, we have to make sure that our printers are, top notch all the time.
Yep. And, we as a collective industry are pushing each other to make things better. All this DTF competition and stuff, it's good. What Mimaki has done with their stuff has made some others rethink some things. And just, there's a lot of, it's so fast. It is so fast. It has flipped this industry upside down to a degree. I mean, literally, here again, I've been in a lot of big shops, and one of my favorite that I have a close relationship with Same Day Tees, and I love people. Sona, the owner at Same Day Tees, and he has some really cool screen printing equipment and DTG equipment. He has a DTG M&R Polaris. You're talking about a very expensive DTG machine. He has a digital squeegee screen press, very expensive piece of equipment. He got these things before DTF came about, and he still uses them every day in the shop. I mean, they still have a lot of orders. But this DTF machine comes about, and you can instantaneously compete with his very expensive equipment and the very long time it takes to master some of those processes. So with DTF, why, again, the cost, everything, but the barriers of entry just got even lower in our industry. It's a transfer. So guess what? I don't even have to own the equipment. I can hit up Brandon. Brandon, you're probably like me, 24, 48 hours. We're shipping it out. It's amazing how cheap some of the shipping has gotten when it comes to using somebody like ShipStation. I mean, I can overnight something ridiculous. So it's just open doors. It's also, I think, in a way, made a lot of people think about staying lean. You know what? I just want to heat press, and I'll outsource everything else. Because I've met a lot of, old school guys who had tons of screen print embroidery equipment, and they've sold some or all of it just to simplify their business. Because again, we'll go back to COVID when this really started. COVID taught us a lot of things, and one of the things was, you know what? You probably want to be lean and mean if you can, and bigger overhead. So I think it's becoming more and more an outsourcing industry. Outsource what you don't like, do what you do, but you can put out the same quality as anybody now. And also when it comes to nobody cares if you printed the DTF transfer or even if you pressed it. At the end of the day, customer doesn't care. But you're only as strong as your supply chain. Brandon, and just like you said, if the link breaks in your situation, it breaks for a lot, and not always good. So want to kind of wrap this up with, what do you think is coming next with DTF? I do know that there's, some are looking at, hey, let's go powderless again and other things.
Yeah.
So where do you see some of...
Well, I mean, the technology is improving. I mean, the powderless thing is going to be a big piece, especially when things start becoming more of the hobbyist printers, kind of the same way that, Sawgrass did the sublimation.
You're so right. You're so right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a matter of time before you can buy, a personal DTF printer in Walmart, and have it on your desk next to your computer and be able to print out your own shirt. That's coming. But there's a few technical challenges that has to be addressed before that can take place. One is going to be that adhesive powder situation, venting and being able to control every variable within the printer. But digital printing is not new. I mean, it's been around for a while. It's just new being able to put it on fabrics. So it's gonna revolutionize the way people do things. And I would imagine that over time, it's gonna become much more accessible to the hobbyist. Right now, we've got, the cricket moms that are loving buying DTF prints right now because, they don't have to weed, they don't have to do all these things that, and if they can have that control, right there in-house, they'll be able to have fast turnaround times for their clients. I think the technology is increasing and improving the way that it always does. At least in the beginning, it's a bit clunky and expensive. But the early adopters are the ones that are going to lead that industry as well. So, by the time there's a DTF printer that sits next to your computer at home, there's going to be so many more new technological advances that have come out that I'm going to be looking into. And for my business, being tech forward and being very, very much on the cutting or even the bleeding edge of technology when it comes to this stuff sets us apart. So we're able to, do things that others aren't able to do right now. And by the time the others are able to do these things, we've already moved on to, what's the new
but it
thing.
Takes time and money. It's not free. R&D is not free. You may put out one of the best possible DTF prints in the industry, but it took you 13 print heads, a year of pulling out your hair. I mean, it's not easy.
I mean, think about, your inkjet printer that you had at home, like when you were in school, and how many problems you have with the inkjet printer, I mean, how many times have you wanted to take a baseball bat to something that's supposed to be pretty straightforward? And a lot of these printers too, they're made so cheap and you get them so inexpensively because they charge you $100 for an ink cartridge. They're making the money on the inks. They're not making the money on the printers.
Yeah. And that's the razor and blade mentality. But with these bulk ink systems, it is different. That's why, again, and I'm not trying to say, hey, don't do this, don't do that. I think there's a lot of different. I was very impressed with the CobraFlex Stealth. I do think all-in-ones are going to become more and more popular just to be able to control every little thing that's going on with it. Because
the thing that really impressed me, the thing that impressed me the most about CobraFlex is their willingness to innovate. They kind of had a tarnished name for a little while there when they were trying to do the powderless adhesive. But what I was even more impressed with was their abandonment of the powderless adhesive when it didn't work and moving towards other things. So like their R&D and their development, in-house is what's kind of setting them apart. And their reputation to me is gotten much better. And I work with Jim over there, but yeah.
Jim and Chris, I mean, they're really smart guys, and you just bought one of their UV DTF printers, which we'll save that for another conversation, but totally, again, really cool stuff, guys. That's what all my mugs and so forth are. It's a 3-dimensional sticker. It's very durable. I mean, I've watched this at least 50 plus times. Nothing coming off of it. So, DTF, it's the infancy stage, it's so young. It's so exciting, and it's the Wild Wild West. And speaking of Wild Wild West, I'll see you in a month or two in Printing United with that show. So thank you so much, Brandon, for joining us, sharing your knowledge. Everybody, check out totalpromotioncompany.com. What's the URL, bud?
Yep, that's it. Yep, totalpromotioncompany.com.
And transfers.totalpromotioncompany.com, right?
Yeah, and then I'm not actually linked. My transfers site is not actually linked from the main site, and that's just because it's kind of a wholesale thing, because we also sell DTF retail for people that need a little bit more help with their artwork. But if you're able to set up gang sheets on your side, it's real simple. You go to transfers.totalpromotioncompany.com. and you can submit orders right through the website, and we can send you out, sheets. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Brandon, for joining us. You're a fun guy to talk to, and I look forward to having a similar conversation with you in the future.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you out here too. So,
thanks.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.